Guys, hope everyone is doing well. I know that I've been missing for a minute, but we were in the path of Hurricane Ian and we had a lot of things to sort out. We had some damage to our house, nothing too terrible. We lost our back porch and a bunch of shingles off the house, some debris everywhere and trees that needed to be cleaned up. But we also had some dear friends that lost everything. And so we've been busy with that. I do have power again after a week, but we do not have Wi-Fi still and probably won't for a hot minute. And being that we're in a rural location, cell service is very unpredictable and spotty. So it's kind of hard to use the internet on our phones. But I've done my best to keep up with the Kiely Rodni case. I haven't really uploaded just because it takes forever with this spotty, splotchy service. But I have gotten some comments and messages asking if I have seen the footage of Kiely Rodni's car going into Prosser Lake. The answer is yes, I have. And I have watched it at least 10 times. And so after observing it, then case closed, right? We were watching with our own two eyes Kiely Rodni driving into that lake and being submerged. Well, I'm not so sure. I'm pretty confident that yes, that is her car. We're looking at the timestamp, and remember, these are the fire cams for the state of Florida. And I would assume, that despite some chitter chatter about possibly this footage being manipulated, I would say that that is highly unlikely, in my opinion. California takes fire very serious. I lived in California for 1 year and I had a friend throw a cigarette butt out the window and receive a $400 fine. Because of their devastating wildfires, they take it very serious. So they do have these cams up. And a lot of people have said, well, isn't it really suspicious that it just happened to be pointing at Prosser Lake? Now, I typically do not believe in coincidences. I say that all the time. But this camera moves. And so this particular evening or early morning, it just happened to be facing that location. And I do actually believe that that was just a coincidence and maybe a very lucky one for us because now we have this footage. Strange that it appears now, law enforcement would have had access to this footage, same as we do. Once again, in this case, YouTubers have had to do the work. I mean, it's strange that YouTubers have really been the ones to put out all of the important information and footage and interviews and everything else that we have had access to. Now, I've said this before, we don't know what law enforcement has and are just not sharing with us. It's not their obligation to share information during an ongoing investigation. But I would think if they had this footage, which I can only imagine that they had, why were they out searching for her for all that time? I mean, Adventures with Purpose didn't find her for almost 2 weeks. Law enforcement was still actively looking for her, or at least appeared to be, and certainly didn't say to Adventures with Purpose, no, don't bother. We have this footage. We know where she is. In fact, they searched that area and came up empty. Did they not look for cameras that would have been facing in that direction? I mean, they live in California. They certainly would have known that there would have been these fire cams. It's really strange and it's really confusing and it's really mind-boggling that this footage is now coming to light via YouTubers that shows a critical piece of information from that evening. So we see the car best that we can. It's very grainy. It's, there's just a lot going on in that video. There's a lot of lights and, we're being told or we're led to believe these are all different, headlights or reflections of headlights. We see Kylie's car come and just kind of make a beeline right down to the beach area, and then it seems to hesitate, and then it just drives on into the lake. And there's just so much that I just don't understand. I don't understand how, as intoxicated as she was, she just beelines it, real steady, it looks like, straight down to that area, and then has a pause, and then, just drives straight in. During that pause, was she so intoxicated that she was unaware of her whereabouts? At this point, she didn't realize that she made a wrong turn, and then goes on into the lake. What's more disturbing to me is that before Kylie's car even approaches, we see that there appears to be other headlights. There appears to be another car that's there for some period of time. And we see that after she goes into the water, there is another car that seems to come and sit for an extended period of time before it goes back in the opposite direction. And we see other cars, making their way out. And at first I thought this was the mass exodus that we've heard about, but actually that should have been right before this happens with the car if you look at the timeline. Let's talk about the timeline. This video contradicts almost everything that we know. That car submerges at 12:34. Now, according to Sammy, she gets a call from Kiely at 12:36. That would be 2 minutes after that car is already submerged. That could be nothing. That could be Sammy is mistaken. But usually when you're mistaken about time, in my opinion, you would round it off more. If I didn't know exactly what time somebody called me, I might say 12:30 or 12:40. To say 12:36 seems like that's because it was exactly at that time. That wouldn't be an estimated guess. An estimated guess would be more rounded off, don't you think? How can somebody call you if their car is already submerged? Unless you didn't realize that there would ever be video, and unless that call never actually came from Kiely. Might have come from Kylie's phone, but didn't come from Kiely. And that would mean somebody else made that call from Kylie's phone after the car was already in the water. Tell me what you think about that. Is that something that we should be concerned about, or you think that Sammy just made a strange estimate in time and it was incorrect? But then what about Elsa, who says that she saw Kiely as late as 1 a.m., falling in holes and, acting drunk and doing all of these things? Is she also off by 30 minutes in her time? It's possible. But then you have the boy that says that he fell asleep in his car and that Kylie's car was there and that when he woke up, Kylie's car wasn't. And he puts that little scenario also well past the time that Kylie's car would have already been submerged. So have all of these people just made huge errors when they recount the time that these things happened? Or were these just stories made up, aliases, or, a narrative that they were putting out there, not realizing that this video would ever come to light that would contradict their times? I don't know. You tell me. I'll say this. Watching this video, even if this was an accident brought on by alcohol or drug use, it to me, it clearly shows that other people there knew exactly what happened. There were way too many headlights that, we heard before, well, the party was over here and this happened over here and the people way over there probably wouldn't have seen the splash of the headlights or anything of the sort. Well, this video says that cars were actually moving about, some stopped, some moving about between the campground and the water, enough that somebody certainly would have seen it. So why would it be something that you would keep secret? Something like that, why would you not just immediately pick up your phone and be like, oh, 911, oh my gosh, somebody's car has just gone into the lake? Would they cover up all of that just because they were out partying? It's a stretch. It's a stretch. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. They are teenagers, and who knows what they would do under pressure if they panicked. But there was a lot of headlights for nobody to just be like, hey, this is what we saw. And especially that honestly, it doesn't seem like overall, okay, maybe not individually, but overall, that this town is overly concerned with kids partying. It seems like a regular thing. So I can't imagine that not one person would have felt comfortable with their partying to make a call for help. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think that overall that these kids would have gotten a lot of flack from their parents or maybe even from law enforcement over just partying. It just doesn't fit. I don't feel that it fits as to why nobody would come forward. These aren't these, kids with all of these authoritarian parents that, oh my gosh, we have to leave her in the lake because we can't let our parents find out that we've been drinking. That just doesn't strike me in this case. Tell me what you think about this. Did this video just rule out foul play? Did it leave more questions than answers to you? Did you watch it and think, what the heck? Then what about all of this? What about the timeline? What about all of these cars that clearly were somewhat in the vicinity? Why has nobody spoke out? Well, we do have Megan that spoke out. If you've heard that interview, Megan, who claims to be the parent of one of these kids, but sounds awfully young to be the parent. I don't know. She seems to not only does she back up everything that Sammy says, but the strangest part about it is that she uses sentences like, that's what we've been trained to do in terms of looking the other way to the partying. That's what we've been trained to do? Trained by who? It's the strangest sentence to say if you're a parent. I can't imagine that if somebody was getting on my case about, my kids partying all the time, that I would go, well, that's what I've been trained to do. I've been trained to look the other way. Was it like a weird, like, Stepford Wives community? You know what I mean? Like, everybody has to act a certain way, through what? Mind control? It was really weird. Really, really weird. Tell me what you think about that. And isn't it strange that this video comes out right after that? I don't think that there's necessarily a connection, but it's just really, it's really strange how all of a sudden, now we have video footage, we have people coming out, and yet every single thing that happens leaves more questions than answers to me. Is there absolutely no question that that car went into the water? I mean, I guess. I didn't find the video, even with people enhancing it, even with the daylight overlay, to be that conclusive to me. I mean, I guess that's what I see. I don't know that that's what I would see if somebody didn't say to me before I saw it, this is what you're going to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already knew going into it that that's what I was looking at. So I don't know if I was influenced by that. I guess that's what I'm seeing. But I do think that I'm leaving it with more questions than answers. I do not feel that I walked away from that going, well, that's it, guys. There's nothing more to talk about because this case has been solved. And if in fact it is solved by that video, then it should have been solved by law enforcement right off the bat, because they certainly, being from California, know that those cameras were available. Or the people that had the cameras up would have made them available, I would think. So if law enforcement saw the video, knew that this child drowned that night or early next morning, I call midnight hour still night, there would have been no reason to be searching for her other than in that location, which they did, and they supposedly didn't find her. So that's strange. We also have the roadside assistance guy. If he claims he saw her the next day, and we now know that the car was in the water, does that negate everything he said? Does that mean that he's a liar? He claimed to have footage. So only one of a couple of things could be happening there. He's either just a bold-faced liar, he was in contact with somebody in a similar car, other young people that he thought were acting sketchy, and he just made a mistake, Or would there be a third possibility? The car in the lake in that video isn't Kiely's car? No, I don't think that there was like multiple cars went in the water that night. Listen, law enforcement, if the tow truck guy is not just an absolute deviant and a liar, they would have had this footage he speaks of. So why have they never come forward and said, oh, we looked at the footage and, you can put that to rest because it was somebody else in the video. It was not Kiely's car. It was a different car, so that's that. It's not part of the case. You think even if they weren't giving us all the information in the case, they would have at least, with all of the hoopla around that would be upsetting to Kiely's family and friends, they would have at least come out and said, hey guys, that is not part of the case. We've already verified it. It was not Kiely's car. Why has law enforcement not come out and said that? If there was footage. And if there wasn't footage, why didn't they just come out and say, listen, there was no footage. That's not relevant to the case. Don't worry about that. Don't, put that to bed. I mean, Jagger told us that the guy was a liar, but how did he know that? Unless this footage has existed all along, and that's why Kiely's family right from the beginning was like, we already know what happened. You know what I mean? And Jagger was like, no, it was just an accident, and the tow truck guy is a liar. Maybe they've had this footage all along. Maybe they saw this footage right from the beginning. And if I were the parent and I saw this footage, I mean, I guess I would be like, okay, I've seen her go in the water. This is just a tragic accident. But I would also be saying, but what about all these other car lights? What about the fact that her car paused? You know what I mean? Like, there would still be things that I would want to be answered from looking at that. And if law enforcement did have this footage and did see right from the beginning that it was an accident, they wouldn't have been out looking for her, number one. So when did they have access to this footage? When? If they saw it and at some point concluded that that was Kiely's car and it was just an accident, then why are they even continuing to investigate? The only thing they could be investigating would be who may have given her substances. I mean, that would be legitimate, right? They would still want to know where she got, the substances that caused her to have this accident. But would that be foul play? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's happened. People have certainly been arrested and held accountable for giving people, different substances if it caused a death. So, I mean, I guess that's why they could have still been investigating, I guess. So am I way off? Am I stretching? Am I looking too much into this? Or did I just see a video of a child drive into a lake and that's the end of it and case is now closed? Do you feel concerned about the unanswered questions of the timeline of all the cars that appear to be in that video and that nobody seems to know anything? Or do you just think, look, they probably saw it, they probably freaked out, and we just need to put it to bed. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. She tragically drowned. It doesn't really matter what anybody knew because they're just kids and what's done is done. Are you concerned about the timeline, or do you just think that everybody was just mistaken on the time that these events occurred? Do you think that the tow truck driver now is absolutely irrelevant and he's just a liar, or he has just made a huge error on what type of car he saw, who was in the car, who they identified themselves to be? Do you think there really ever was footage from the tow truck driver? Because maybe that will appear suddenly, just like this footage appeared. Do you think it's bizarre that this footage is now just coming out via YouTubers who seem to be behind all of the relevant information that we get instead of law enforcement and family? Tell me what you think, and I will see you soon. Bye.